We are live, and I know some of you are going to be joining us for our first midterm candidate interview of the series, the 2026 season. Yay! And we're starting off with a local race, Bryant Acosta out of Los Angeles, California. So it is actually much earlier over there than it is for me. But we are going to introduce Bryant in just a second. But as you guys are joining, just a reminder that 2026 is midterm year, in case you didn't know already. And what we are planning to do this year is take back our entire country from from the hapless politicians on either side of the aisle. One is definitely less hapless than the other, but still we don't like it very much. And so we're trying to primary individuals who need to be primaried and then also make sure there's challengers in every general election for every single candidate possible. So I am joined today by Bryant Acosta. And Bryant, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and specifically talk about your election dates and why you're running and like that kind of thing.
Great. Hi, everybody. Bryant Acosta, running for LA City Mayor. The election is going to be on June 2nd. So please be, if you're in the LA area and you can vote, please make sure you register. Um, yeah, excited to be here with y'all and, talk politics.
Awesome. Now, Brian, tell us more about why you decided to run for mayor. Usually people don't just like wake up and go like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a campaign that costs money and lots of time, and it's gonna be exhausting. And you're in a crowded primary, as you were just telling me, and so this is gonna be a lot of work. So, why are you doing this? Why do you love LA that much?
I mean, born and raised here. I'm an Angelino, Southern Cali boy. I just, I think we're all at a point where, it's becoming a generational shift. Nobody's coming to save us. If, we have to be the generation that builds the life that we want for ourselves. And I think we need a leader that is here to meet this moment, and I just don't see that in the field that I'm running in. And I'm just really inspired by a lot of the other candidates that have been running and winning the races. So I'm like, you know what, this is doable. And I think that I have a really unique perspective with my background as a chief creative officer. Normally creatives don't really run for politics because we hate we hate it, right? We just want to be creative and do our art. But I think that the pedigree that I come from, it really, sets up a nice stage for being able to not only envision a better future for us, but execute. And because LA doesn't have a ideas problem, it has an execution problem, and that's something I'm, very passionate about. That I think that, or I know that if I'm elected, I can bring to the table and change people's lives.
Amazing. Is there like a petty or not so petty grievance? Like you say that they have an idea and they don't have an ideas problem, they have an execution problem. So what's an example that you could give of, here's a really great idea and here's why it's like falling on its face?
Well, perfect example. So, the homeless problem, that's one of the top three for Angelinos, right? It's homelessness, affordability, and public safety, which all, to me, they're all kind of within the same ecosystem. But the example that I can give is essentially you'll have like one size fits all solutions, right? But they don't really ever look at things like in phases or look at things like on the like a metadata kind of things where they're just like, oh, well, we'll just do this and then it's going to help like everybody. But then the reality is, like, for example, the homelessness, not everybody is on the same level, right? Because you have people that are on substance abuse, mental health, the people that have just fallen on their luck, and then the people that get shipped here from other states. Um, and when you have a one size fits all solution, like, they're good ideas and they're well intentioned, but you're not really addressing the root problems of each of these. I would call them verticals or buckets,
Mhm.
and that's where people fall short. And so when you start thinking about it and breaking it down into more of a process, which is what I've done in kind of my research that I've been to put forth policy, is to really look at, like, what do each of these buckets need and how do we approach them, because a one size fits all doesn't work for everybody, because then you have things like, people with mental health problems getting put into Section 8 housing across the hall from like a family of five in a really nice condo. What ends up happening, they bring drugs, prostitution, all kinds of crazy things. And it's not their fault, but, the system is just saying, oh, we're just moving people around instead of addressing problems. And so that's what I mean by, ideas are there, but there's no execution that's actually fixing the problem.
Right. Like in that example, it's like we need some case management. We need some, some more individualized supports. And that's expensive, right? That level of service is extremely expensive. So it's a matter of how we are able to provide that, which brings us beautifully into the platform points that we want to talk about today. So, as some people may or may not know, I have developed the 9 members of my Fellowship of the Ring for midterm candidates. Now, for local candidates like Bryant, we are obviously adjusting this because the 9 priority areas that I have identified were based on a federal congressional frame, but there are plenty of crossovers. And so the 3 crossovers that we're going to discuss today are about corporate slash PAC money, campaign finance, basically, high net worth individual taxation, and then the administrative state. And we'll go in that order. So, Bryant, are you going to be taking any corporate money slash PAC money for your race?
Hell to the no. And the reason for that is I wanna be able to take my vision and actually be able to execute it without having to worry about, "Oh, my donors," or, "Oh, special interests," or, "Oh, I owe favors," like, absolutely not. I think that that is the fundamental reason why, everybody's frozen, like, people may have, good intentions, but at the end of the day, if somebody is paying for you to be there, then they're expecting, for you to pay the piper.
Yeah. Well,
Audited.
right. And it used, unfortunately, we are in a post Citizens United world where it used to be, yeah, they were kind of just another individual of sorts, right? It was certainly a special interest. And I mean, we can talk about lobbyists and stuff in a separate conversation. But if we're just talking purely donations, right? The idea was that a corporation, like any other entity, could donate to a campaign, fine, whatever, but there was a limit and that was it. And then CU really just jacked all of that up where, some candidates have flipped to most of their fundraising comes from the corporate slash PAC side, or even worse, a super PAC, which is different from a
Mm,
PAC outside the scope of this conversation. But having all of that there. So you are committed to small donors and grassroots,
yep.
which is very admirable. That being said, I would love to know how you plan to get the campaign done without having that backing, because that is the trade off, right? Is
Mhm.
if we're not taking corporate money, then we have less advertising dollars. And we all know that voters are typically going to be like, oh, yeah, I heard that person's name before. Like, that's what I'm going to do at the ballot box. Not everybody is going to actually do their research, unfortunately. So, how are you going to get penetration without taking corporate money?
I mean, I feel like I have a pretty strong community here. So I mean, we've already raised over 2,000 and I just launched my campaign like 2 weeks ago. So, it's like moving along. So people are definitely paying attention and, if we continue on that trajectory, I think it'll be good. The other thing, I think one of my superpowers is I'm a little bit of a one-man army given my background. So, being able to put, my visuals together, my website, a lot of the marketing, all the upfront costs, I've been able to sort of, just build myself because that's my background. And so, being able to be really nimble, and I mean, and remember, I come from like the agency and entertainment world, so we're used to working with no money, but delivering like a really expensive, amazing campaign that is, multilingual, international, and all the things. So, I'm excited to take on the challenge. So I'm used to being the underdog and I'm used to working with no money. So I'm ready to go.
You're like, this is fine. This is
Yeah, I'm good.
amazing. All right, so let's talk about taxation. And one of my 9 commandments, as it were, is that we need to increase the marginalization for high net worth individuals. And for anyone who's like marginalization taxes, like that's just a very short and sweet that, or I should say, it's a very complicated way. Words are hard of saying that not everyone should be paying the same tax rate. When we talk about progressive taxes, we're saying, someone who's making $50,000 a year, 5% for them is not 5% for someone making $1 million a year. And with that understanding, we have progressive tax rates where your tax bracket goes up the higher your income. But what has happened in this country is that people in the bottom 80, 90% of the income ranges have ended up paying mostly their fair share, maybe a little bit more than they really need to.
Mhm.
And then we have the top 10%, 5%, 1% that, we're getting to the billionaires up there. And you're in LA, so I'm sure you can talk about some of this where we leave a lot of money on the table. And it's because they're job creators or they're going to reinvest in the economy somehow, some way. That's the trickle down thing from our good buddy Ronald Reagan. So that's all nonsense, and I have plenty of other content explaining why trickle down is nonsense and why individuals, particularly high net worth individuals that none of us would ever be except for inheriting a lot of money, need to be taxed at a much higher rate for their, at the very least, their income. And then we could talk about wealth and whatever. I don't know anything about LA. I'm on the East Coast. I'm a Virginia girl. I have zero understanding of the income levels or disparities or lack thereof of LA. So I would love, Bryant, for you to talk about what would be your tax plan if you could go in as mayor and be like, this is going to be the tax schedule now. Boom. And I know it's more complicated than that, but just like if you're like, I won the race and now I get to implement this, what would you be trying to implement?
So I want to take a step back. I
Mhm.
think I love everything that you said, and I think that this is that moment where we do have to reassess that, just because of we need to have some economic justice applied to everybody, and be able to have people pay their fair share. It's very simple. For LA, I want to take a step back because we work with a $13 billion budget, and when you look at what's being done in the city and what's not being done, I just really feel that there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. And I I used to love that term until Doge came and co-opted it and did the
Yeah.
total opposite of what they were supposed to do. But I'm very firm believer in being able to, take a budget, look at it, look at where the money is going, follow every penny, and sort of reassess that and do a reconcile. And the reason I want to take a step back is because in my phases and in my process, I want to start from ground zero, which is what is the actual money that we have, right? And how does that work? Because if we don't have to tax anybody, then we shouldn't right now. And it's because I want to go in phases, right? I don't want to just propose things and do like I said, one size fits all solutions. It's more about let's do phase one, let's assess the budget, let's assess what's happening, let's assess the things that are working and not working. And if we do have to increase taxes, so be it, but they're not going to be for the working class because we don't have any more money to give. Like it's done. Like I mean, with inflation and everything, there's none there. And again, going back to the economic justice part of it, that the the ultra wealthy would be the place to go. But going back to my first phase, I would want to reassess it because I really think with a $13 billion budget, the money is there to take care of the needs of the city. There's so much, I have friends that work in City Hall and I have friends that have worked for the city as contractors. I've worked for the city as a contractor. And like the amount of just waste is insane. And I mean, we just spent like 4 billion on like frivolous lawsuits and like all these things, and I'm like, wait, what? I was like, how are we not like addressing these kinds of things? And I don't know, it just doesn't feel like I feel like there's the money is there. I think we just need somebody that has better money management skills that can address a budget of that size for so many organizations. And I think if we started there, in that phase, then we could sort of work our way into say, okay, cool. Now we know where the money's getting plugged into. And then if we get to phase three, where we're like, okay, well, we're going to need this in order to make everybody's lives better, then we can sort of approach it from, a tax standpoint. But my honest gut read is like, no new taxes until City Hall knows what the hell they're doing with the money.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfectly fair assessment. And I think that, when people are talking about economic justice, like you were just dating, most candidates, most, politicians are thinking like, well, first let's make sure we've got our arms around what it is, right? What is the budget? What's actually coming in? What's flowing out? What doesn't need to flow out? What should be flowing out but isn't, and all that kind of thing. And then saying, okay, where do we, how do we broaden the revenue base, as we would say, like in the fancy terms?
Right.
I definitely like I probably sound like Robespierre all the time, like in the French Revolution days of like, let's,
Off with their heads.
right off with their heads, like take all the money. And that's actually not where I'm coming from ever. I am very like I run nonprofits for a living, and my first step is always to be like, okay, let me understand what's happening first,
Mhm.
and then what like are we leaving money on the table? Is there money we're just not collecting, right?
Yeah.
Like that we've already taxed, if you will, but we're not getting for whatever reason. Or are there expenses going up? It's like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to pay quite that much for it. And I appreciate that you're viewing it with that like level
Mhm.
um perspective, because I think often when we say tax the rich, which I believe in completely,
Yeah, me too.
um like I'm all about taxing the rich, but I think it often gets co-opted, especially by conservatives, as being like, oh, you just want to roll in and immediately hike the tax rates. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, for Elon, sure, I like, if you made me
Yes.
president tomorrow, if you made me president or house speaker or whatever tomorrow, I would, his tax rate would be 90% tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't wait for that. That being said, like, I also, before we do really anything, as far as I would never push forward a big, beautiful bill in year one. How in the world do you know what to do after 2 months in office? It's just, anyway, that's the whole thing. So before, without going on down a million,
Real quick, just gonna if I can
okay.
add something. So I also believe that we can't tax our way out of our problems. We also need to be in creative and bring in new revenue streams. I've been thinking about ways of how do we take the money that we put into the public sector or we give for grants and start reevaluating how that money is spent. Like I look at like Elon Musk, right? They come, they get the grants, they promise jobs, and then they get the grants, and as soon as they get all the money, then they're gone, right? I think we need to start looking at things from a government perspective, more of like an angel investor, right? So if we're helping you, if we're helping, grants, even for people that are like you and me, we're investing in you, but we need some sort of revenue to come back, whether it's through I don't know, just revenues to come back into the city. But if you look at an angel investor model, that's basically how it works. Like we're helping you, but you're helping us back, and it's coming back into the public because at the end of the day, it's your money, my money, everybody that watching's money, and we need to basically make sure that that money doesn't get tied up in any kind of shady dealings or just lost in the system. Right now, one of the well, especially for California because we're taxed to high hell here.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm so sensitive about that as well, because even for like wealthy people, I 1,000,000% agree with you on everything you said about taxing the rich, but I just feel like it's irresponsible because we already get taxed on so many things. And if you're not looking at where the money is going now and where you're assessing it, we could literally put 1,000,000% tax on everybody. You know what I mean? And it's not going to make a difference if we're not spending the money correctly or if it's getting, placed into places that it shouldn't be. And, the shady thing about it is we have an amazing controller here who is like doing a lot of the stuff that I want to do. I just want to plus it up now. Like, I'm like, oh my God, he's already doing some of this stuff. It's amazing. And like, he has a public dashboard of like where all the money goes. But the problem is yeah, it's amazing. But I want to go one step further. I want to have a civics app where you go into your app and you're able to see it like on your bank account. And I'm just like, dude, like we can do this. And that stuff's really exciting to me. But like he's running into roadblocks because you have City Hall with their private contractors, their developers, and all these things. They're not giving him access to the pennies. Like they're just like, oh well, this contract went out here, but then there's no like line items. You know what I mean? And so there's a big fight going on about that, and it just feels weird because City Hall literally paid $3 million for them to get an audit from a third party rather than using the controller. And to me, that just sounds really shady. And I'm just like, and the kicker is they didn't even get the results that they wanted. They went back and said, oh, this was just preliminary because they didn't get the audit that they were hoping for. So to me, that says there is waste, fraud, and abuse. Like the money is there. Like $13 billion. That's like the GDP of some small countries. So I'm just like, what are we doing? And so that whole thing is just it's wild to me. But this idea of being able to create new revenue streams, think outside of the box, and also bring in like sponsorships and partnerships to the city, because that's something that we do in marketing and like brand advertisement is always partnerships. Who do we partner with? Like there's so many opportunities here because we're a creative city. So looking at it from through the lens of an agency or a marketing agency, we can do those same things, but on a citywide level so that we're not having to always have the taxpayer fit the bill.
Amazing. I love that, and I love a great auditor or controller. I said before, I'm in nonprofit management. They are my best friends. I find these people to be kind of the best part of our society because, like that's why I love Inspector. When he as in Trump fired all the inspector generals earlier this year, I was just like, yeah. I disliked you before, but if I didn't, I now absolutely dislike you because these are the people as much as like people roll their eyes when it's audit time, oh, I have to pull all these things and whatnot. But when it comes to our tax dollars or donated dollars or whatever it is, it's like these are the protectors of waste, fraud, and abuse. Like they make sure that that doesn't happen. And I love that there's a dashboard to see like the audit. And your idea of an app is brilliant. Like I wanted to double click on that. Like let's do more of that, please. Like what
Right.
a great idea.
Like, I'm really excited, like and that's, like, my background, right? Because I come from also tech, I worked
Right.
oh my background is so diverse, it's crazy, like, I feel like I've done everything, but, I've worked in tech for a while, so developing apps, and so I'm like, "Oh my god, we can use an app and basically bring our civics into the 21st century," because like, right now, even to, like, get, like, a permit or pay a parking ticket, there's, like, 50 different sites. I'm like, "No, let's have it, like, in the palm of your hand, one click, and that's it. You shouldn't have to do a million things." And in the app, guess what? It's also going to tell you, like, this is the timeline, this is whose desk is sitting on right now. You can send an email directly to them and say, "Hey, what's up?"
Right.
Like,
Amazing.
that's the accountability.
Yeah, and that leads us perfectly into a robust slash nimble administrative state. We've already gone into point 3 without even having to try, so that is amazing. Like, you've talked about, first of all, but leveraging technology and bringing civics to the phones, the devices, right into the eyeballs of the people. I mean, I sometimes wanna throw my phone into the river and never see it again, but I recognize that technology is mostly a force for good if people are using it for good. And I like all the ideas that you just listed are amazing. Is there any other way that you would bolster the administrative state? You talked about, plus up the actions of the controller you've already got, which is amazing, and, the technology. Are there any other action items that you have?
Yeah, I would want to look at all the third party stuff, so third party organizations and contractors, because I don't know if you know what LASA is, but that's like they basically are in charge of like a lot of the homeless projects. They actually just got in trouble because they didn't pass their audit, and so there's a lot of like shady dealings that are happening that haven't been confirmed yet, but I mean, they're dropping like flies basically right now. And
Mm,
when I look at that, I'm like, we need to reevaluate and assess these things. Like when I worked at agencies and we needed to reassess like the vendors we were working with, we would just say, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna bring everybody back house and we're going to reassess and build a hierarchy, because that's how we were able to save on money and cut back on the fraud and waste. Because you're like, okay, now we have like an in-house team that is really looking at things and we cut out the middlemen. And and that is something that I think Democrats, I as much as I as much as people talk shit about certain things, like Democrats do this a lot where they bring in and they just add too much red tape, or they bloat the system. And so one of the things that I want to take a look at is like, how do we like avoid doing that? You know what I mean? Like we don't want to just have a fat system to have a fat system. We have a functioning system. And so being able to reassess those contracts is going to be key in order to be able to get the process stabilized and also get Los Angeles back on track.
Amazing. I really one of those things like the direct service issues, I could not agree more with your assessment of that. I get really frustrated with the privatization movements and the contracting and whatnot. I'm not saying contractors have no place in administrative state, like not at all. There are some things that it just makes sense if someone is doing something amazingly and and you don't have to like reinvent the wheel, hire them.
Yeah.
Great. And then audit the contract all of
But
the time
also,
with
like, also you have to, in order to, like, I have contracts with, because I run a small business and I have contracts with Marriott. And so I have a couple of hotels that I run here, on the entertainment side of things. And they grade me. If I do a crappy job, I'm going to lose my contract. Like that, like, we need to have that level, not, oh, they're my friend. So they're going to get the contract no matter what they do. Like, we're going to cover their butt. And that's like what's happening. And I think that we need a strong leader to come in and say enough is enough. Like, this is our money that we're basically throwing away, and we could be using it for other things that are more important. I mean, LA has so many things that, I mean, look at what happened with the fires. We
Mhm.
couldn't have used that money to do something there. Absolutely.
Right. I feel like if I were to summarize your positioning and your platform, it's like what Doge should have been but wasn't.
Yeah.
That's what you want to go in and do. And again, to push back on the rhetoric from, conservatives and maybe also some liberals, it's like just because someone is left doesn't mean we're like spend all the money and everyone gets everything for free and who cares about bills and revenue and what. Absolutely not. It's like more about we'd like to prioritize, and if it's certain things, spend. If it's healthcare, if it's food, spend all the money, do
Right.
it, but also spend it in a way where it actually effectuates outcomes, and we're not going to leave money on the table. When you were mentioning your app earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, what a way to capture revenue. Like, I don't have to chase you down for your parking ticket. You just got a like notification all the time saying like, hey, pay your
Yep.
ticket. But how much bad debt do we write off every year just because we can't collect it, when it could be something as simple as like a push notification. So
Yeah.
I really, really love the way that you're presenting this as like, let's just put in some common sense ideas, and also let's walk in, not barrel in like a bull in a china shop, but like let's actually walk in and understand the situation. It's reminding me of Clinton's like Doge thing that he did. Like, people don't realize it. And by the way, people like not a Clinton worshiper or fan really by any stretch. Like, don't, this is not an endorsement of Bill Clinton. But if you're going to downsize or right size or Doge anything or whatever, the way that his administration did it was at least the right process. We can argue all day long about how it actually like fell out and whatever, but we got a surplus for a reason, was because there was some common sense things put in. He can be a garbage person and also have managed to do the right thing for the administrative state. Two things can be true at the same time. So I always feel that because like I really love to drag that man whenever I can, but this is just kind of one of those things where I have to be like, that is one of the areas in
It
which,
is.
like
Yeah.
they spent years auditing the departments and figuring out what would make sense and having employees determine if they would buy themselves out or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it made sense. Whereas Elon just went in there and was like insane, and all of it is just a mess. But anyway, I don't want to like steal too much more of your time, but I do want to end with like, what do you need from the people who are watching this now or will watch it later, which is going to be a lot of people probably, and we're putting up clips of things. So if you're like, hey people, I'm not taking corporate money, so this is what I need in order to have a successful campaign, like put out your call to action here.
Great. Well, what she said, I need money. Just kidding. Yeah, if you guys are interested in what I'm talking about, I think we're all on the same page here. I definitely have my hand on the pulse of what's going on in, within all of our heads. And I think I have some amazing ideas. So please go to my website at acosta4la.com. We're taking donations now. We are also trying to meet our LA has a awesome program where they match donations by sixfold. So we need to be able to meet those deadlines pretty here soon. So if you're thinking about donating, please donate as soon as possible so we can hit those deadlines. And follow me on all the social channels. And stay tuned. And just so everybody knows, right now where I'm at in my process, because we just launched like weeks ago, so I'm fairly new. Just took a minute to get the ball rolling, and also honestly just decide if I was going to do this because I mean it's a really huge undertaking. But like I said, I really care about my community and my city, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And if I get elected, I know I'm going to shake shit up in a good way for everybody. Um, so please, if you're interested, please follow me. And if I'm pretty accessible. Shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to walk you through some stuff. And oh, and sorry, just to go back a little bit. So where I'm at in my process. So launched 2 weeks ago. Right now, have a splash page up with some information on, the way that I've broken everything down. And then probably around February, March is when I'll start rolling out my policy. I'm working on that with my legal team and research team.
Mhm.
Because one of the things you should know about my campaign is I'm not going to talk about anything that I can't deliver on. So I want to be very prescriptive in the things that I want to do because this isn't politics as usual. I'm a creator and I'm somebody who can execute, and I want to make sure that that is first and foremost what you're going to get from me as mayor.
Amazing. So your handles are at Acosta for LA across all platforms,
Yep.
correct? And you said Acosta for LA.com. So DM, go through the website and contact and all that kind of stuff if you want to get involved. Are you taking volunteers right now for any campaign activities or
Um,
stay tuned?
yeah, you can if you're interested in campaigning. We'll probably have that up in another 2 weeks or so, but you can always hit me at hello at Acosta for LA.com.
Perfect. And then your primary is June 2nd, and you're running in the Democratic primary. Are California primaries open or closed?
They're open.
Okay, so you don't have to be a registered party to participate in primaries. And this year, 2026, every single person who's in an open primary state like Virginia, mine, or California, Brian's, you need to go vote in them. Whether you're going to screw up the party of the one that you want to mess up, or if you're going to actually push a candidate. In this case, you have a lovely candidate to choose from in the Democratic primary, so you should go do that. And then the general election is what date?
I think it's a general election. Well, so LA is very special. So basically, on June 2nd, there's the primary. So whatever candidate gets 50 plus one votes percentage, they will go on to as the primary candidate. If nobody gets that, then there'll be a runoff, and that'll be in November.
Okay. All right. Amazing. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Brian, thank you for your time today. And thank you for choosing to run for something because that is awesome. And we will be posting this recording to both of our Substacks that will get published. And we'll also put clips across social media. You guys should go follow Bryant. And if you don't know me, I am Kate for the People. I am doing a whole series on midterm candidates from now until I drop of exhaustion on election day in November. And at that point, I expect to have a democracy worth having, or I will cry myself to sleep. So thank you for being here and really appreciate your time. And let's go, Bryant, for LA.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.